Do you think the human civilizations are cyclical?
Yeah, well, I mean, and if we're that wrong about that, then we could be equally wrong about other developmental claims of our species. So there's nothing about Longyou caves, no mention of it whatsoever. So no one knows what it was for. No one knows how they achieved the precision between each 24 caverns. They're all exactly the same. Like the angles are all precisely exactly the same. No one knows why they built it. No one knows who built it. No one knows how old it is.
Can we describe Hawara for the audience?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Hawara is a pyramid south of Giza. But yeah, it's hard to look at. It's also it's mentioned in the Epstein files, which is a weird.
Really?
Yeah. There was
Welcome back to the Ancient Technology Podcast. If you enjoy the show and want to help me creating high-quality episodes, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. You can find those links in the description. Your support gives you early access, a say in the podcast direction, and exclusive perks like post-show bonus content. Most importantly, it helps me travel to meet guests in person, which is a key to producing the most engaging and in-depth episodes. Thank you for considering, and now let's get back to the show.
Guinness. Should we crack it open? I'll crack it open.
Okay.
Why not? I'll make a special exception for the
Thank you.
for the podcast.
Do you like it?
I mean, not really. I don't dislike it. I'm just not a big drinker, so I never really drink it. But I'm not against it, you know. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, it's not too bad. It's all right. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Do you want me to pick this up?
Yeah, maybe it's. I mean, probably it's a little bit inconvenient, but let me know.
Rest it like here.
Yeah. Is it good?
Awesome. Yeah, that's fine.
Michael Button, thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to see you and to speak to you today. And welcome to London. I know you've been here before, but welcome to my country, to my city, and very excited.
Yeah, it's lovely. We were in the British Museum yesterday, and it was not the first time, obviously, for me, but it's always a cool place to just go in. The amount of people there was crazy. It's always
very
crowded.
Busy, very busy. Lots of cool ancient stuff there, for sure. What did you look at? Lots of the Egyptian stuff.
Vases.
Yeah.
Also, we have seen few nice Neolithic jade objects from China.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was actually very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes even more impressive than the Egyptian vases.
Yeah.
And jade is also quite a hard stone. It will be interesting to. Hopefully, we will be able to.
the lights are going up. Yeah.
Hopefully, we will be able to investigate those as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I go there quite a lot, to be honest. I like just walking around and vibing with the old stuff. But it's probably really, especially today, because today's a bank holiday here because of Easter. So
I think it's still open.
it was still open, yeah, but just really busy. Just very busy.
A lot of
you went
tourists.
yesterday, I suppose.
Yeah.
Still probably busy, full of people. But hey, that's because it's so interesting.
Which one is the favorite room for you there?
I love the Egyptian room where they have like the kind of statue busts on the plinths, like through the middle of the room. That's really cool. And then you kind of go into the Assyrian bit. That's my favorite part of it. But I love the whole thing, man. I like museums in general. It doesn't even have to be I like the Natural History Museum or the Science Museum that we have. We have quite a lot of cool museums in London, so I do like walking through them and just vibing. So yeah, I love it.
It was surprising to me at the first time that it's free.
Yeah. That's a British thing. I like that. There's some talk about that ending, because we're all broke. But
Really?
well, I don't think it will. But because it's subsidized by the government, right? And I like that it is, because it's for like education purposes, and also, I guess, tourism in a way gets people to come, or it's like a attracting factor. So I like that it's free, but it does mean it's always extremely busy, and it also costs a lot to keep them open. But I like it. I support it.
You can book your tickets in advance.
You can book your tickets in advance, yeah, but
It's not always guaranteed.
yeah, and it doesn't seem like there's much limit on how many people can book in. It seems always full, but it's a cool museum, so I guess that comes with that.
Michael, who are you and why did you decide this path?
So I'm Michael. I guess I'm a YouTuber that talks about ancient history and prehistory. The reason I chose this path was, well, I took ancient history at university, so I chose that when I was 18, and that's because I was extremely interested in our ancient past, in the big question regarding the formation of civilization and when that occurred and how that occurred and why that occurred and where that occurred, and all these questions about the origins of civilization and the history of our species. And that kind of led me onto the journey of looking into prehistory a lot more and thinking about where we came from effectively, because I think that's kind of the biggest question, or at least lots of questions all tie back into that big, deep underlying question about where did we come from as a species, where did civilization come from, and things like that. So I took ancient history at university, and it was good, and I learned a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of respect for the people that I went to university with and the people that I met there and the teachers that I had, the professors, the academics that taught me, and I learned many things, and I was very grateful for that experience. But it was during the course of my study that I found myself growing slightly at odds with the mainstream interpretation of history, I guess is how you'd put that. Mainly to do with the question of when civilization started and the linear timeline of history that was presented as fact and as truth by my teachers. And it's not that I disagree with anything that I was being taught specifically in the kind of micro level. I didn't disagree with any of the kind of specifics about ancient Sumer or anything like that. It was more the wider, higher level scope of the human story that I started to grow a little bit suspicious of, I guess is a way of putting it, because it was during my period of study that we discovered the Homo sapien remains at the Jebel Irhoud site in Morocco that are dated to 350,000 years old, 315 to 350,000 years old. And that really made me think, like, that's such a staggeringly long time for modern humans to have been walking this planet. And yet I was going into my classes and being taught that sophisticated, large, complex societies only emerged 5,000, 6,000 years ago. And that's incredibly recent compared to 315,000 years. That's a huge stretch of time in which we were doing not very much according to the mainstream model. And then only at the very end did all these highly complex societies spring up in completely unconnected areas across the globe at roughly the exact same time. So that struck me as odd. And then I started looking into it more and started investigating slightly more alternative interpretations of history. And these are things that I don't necessarily subscribe to, but I find merit in considering them and looking at them with a critical lens and not immediately dismissing them. And so that's kind of where I took a slightly separate road from the career that I guess was laid out for me, which was to go on to do a PhD, I guess, and become a professor myself and talk about ancient history from an academic standpoint, which is, I guess, the career that I would have done if I continued with my educational path, but I decided not to do that. I left university. I didn't immediately start a YouTube channel. That only came relatively recently, about a year and a half ago now.
You were on Rogan.
Yeah.
The first
I know that was
podcast of yours was on Rogan.
Yeah, that was the first. I mean, it was even quicker than that, because I made videos for about 6 months, and they weren't even specifically about this topic. I kind of fell into this topic by chasing my interest. So if you look at my first videos, there's like a video about sci-fi books, because I'm interested in sci-fi books, and I was like, I'm gonna make a video about sci-fi books. And then there's a video about, I can't remember, something else, like World War I or something. And I was just like making videos about things that I was interested in. And then I started making videos about prehistory and this ancient civilization question, which I'm interested in.
Why exactly?
But just because I have that interest, and I was just kind of bouncing around different interests, and I'd done the degree, and I'd been, as I said, been exploring these kind of alternative explanations, and I thought, I have a relatively unique standpoint to talk about these things, because I have the traditional academic background, and I also have the kind of more out there, wacky alternative views, or I'm at least sympathetic to them. So I felt that from that position, you know, I had a voice, or at least I had an opinion that I felt like I wanted to share with the world. So I made a few videos about that kind of topic, like, you know, what if we're not the first civilization, just like posing possibilities. And yeah, a couple of them blew up, and then Rogan shouted, like literally the second one that did like big numbers, like hundreds of thousands kind of numbers. He shouted that out on his show, and that blew my mind. And then a few months later, I got the call to actually go on. And yeah, as you say, it was the first podcast I ever did, which was very surreal. But
I believe that.
yeah, but
You just received an Instagram message,
so
or
I got
how
an
did you
email from
invite?
his team, which I thought was fake because it just came from a Gmail account. And I was like, this isn't real. There's no way this guy's emailing me. But then he DM'd me himself, and then I was like, oh, this probably is real. And yeah, I'm going to Texas, so seems pretty real.
Oh, we had to DM you because you didn't respond.
Well,
to the first one.
I was responding because they didn't ask anything from me other than my name and my airport, and I was like, well, I might as well. Well, they can't take anything from me with that. And then yeah, he DM'd me like as that process was going on, just saying like, yeah, I was super excited to talk to you, and I was like, whoa, this is real. And then yeah, then I did that, and then yeah, it's kind of been upwards since then, really, just pumping out videos about things that interest me about ancient history, and they're not all like particularly alternative, but some of them are. I just kind of go down every single thought process that my brain takes me when thinking about these subjects. I think about that, and then I produce that into a video asking the question, and then that's kind of how my creative process works. And I think people resonate with that, and I think people see that I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just asking questions that I think are valid, and that's kind of where I go with it. And yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
What was your specialization at university?
At university, so the course was called Ancient History. The specialization, I mean, we didn't really do specializations. It was kind of different modules in different. So we did like a little bit of ancient Egypt, and then we did a little bit of ancient Rome and a little bit of ancient Greece and things like that. It was all the kind of Hellenistic, I guess you'd call it, civilizations. It was quite Eurocentric, to be honest with you, but
Okay.
it was classics. Classics, that basically is what classics is, and there's ancient Sumer in there as well, I guess. But so that's what it was focused on. I specialized in my final year I wrote my dissertation in Roman gladiators and their depiction in media throughout the ages, and their use as a political tool, I think, is what I wrote about. So like how people used the image of gladiators, how it started in Roman times, and then how it was used for propaganda, I guess, through the ages, like up until like nationalist Italy and Mussolini and people like that, using the kind of narrative of ancient Rome to promote their kind of nationalist, fascist ideals up to the 20th century. That was kind of, and then even into the modern day with like films like Gladiator and stuff. So that was what my dissertation was on, which is pretty niche.
Well, that's interesting. What was the conclusion?
I can't even remember. I think my conclusion was, I can't even remember what I was asking. I just remember that was the topic. I can't remember what my argument was, you know. I can't remember. It was something to do with the symbol of the gladiator has, I can't remember. I actually can't remember. I need to look back at my dissertation. I just remember that was what I was talking about. So I can't remember my conclusion or my argument, which probably says a lot about the quality of it. But yeah, that was what I specialized in, I guess. But
And what was the reason why you stopped, or did you pursue a career in archaeology?
No, I didn't. That was the
History?
end of my academic and history career, I guess, until I started the YouTube. But the main reason I stopped was, one, because I was growing a little bit separated from. I was growing a bit frustrated with the, I guess you'd call it, the closed-minded approach to looking at history, as in looking at things and saying, if we don't have direct evidence that this happened, then this never happened. And I don't subscribe to that at all. I think you have to kind of make logical jumps when you're looking at history. You have to look at something we do have and then say, well, what does this mean about the capability of ancient humans? Then therefore this may be possible, etc., etc. That's kind of how I think about history. I kind of we have like a teardrop of a site, and then but I think about the waterfall that therefore could have existed because we have that teardrop of evidence or that tiny little data point. And that's not how it's taught. It's kind of taught in the way that if we don't have direct evidence for something, we can't claim it may have happened, because that it's all very evidence based, and that's fine. But it didn't really sit right with me and how I was thinking about history and the kind of questions I was interested in. I didn't think that if I continued on that career path, the things that I wanted to discuss, which are the things that are on my YouTube channel, I didn't think that would be the kind of thing that would get funding for a PhD or anything like that. Like, no one's going to fund me to do a PhD on maybe there were ancient civilizations 100,000 years ago. Let's do a thought experiment on that, because it's not something that's, I guess it's not something that can fully be proven. So it's not something that is really intrinsically academic, I guess. But either way, I was kind of feeling a divide. And also I was just a bit sick of the whole academic system. It annoyed me in certain ways.
What was the point when you decided, okay, let's fuck it?
Towards the end, yeah. I mean, towards the final year, I was just really sick of, I was getting a bit sick of the course, and I was just getting a bit sick of the way it was taught and the kind of limits on creative thinking regarding history. That's not the best way of putting it, but...
Do you have an example for that?
It was more just like everything we were taught was within a very set structure of what could be discussed. So, for example, I discovered Göbekli Tepe existed during my course. I didn't even know about it before my course, but I didn't discover it because of my course, because we didn't learn about that. I discovered it in my own time. And then I brought that to a seminar and I said, can we discuss Göbekli Tepe? I find this a really interesting site, and I find the whole Tashtapela culture really interesting. I think this is very significant for the development of civilization, which is what I kind of assumed my course was, ancient history, right? But I was told, no, that's not relevant to ancient history. Ancient history begins at 3000 BC with the invention of writing. Everything before that is archaeology. You need to join archaeology. It's a different course. And I was just like, oh, come on, how close do you have to be? And like, I understand the distinction, but I just wish there was a little bit more flexibility in this kind of things we could discuss, because at the end of the day, we were there because we were interested in these topics, but there was no flexibility at all to discuss things that are very related to these topics. Like, I understand the distinction that Göbekli Tepe is technically pre-civilization according to this model, and thus it doesn't fall inside the ancient history degree course, but I just found that quite silly, to be honest. I felt like it should have been something that we should be able to explore, but it was things like that that just kind of frustrated me with the whole system. And
do you think it was the problem of the system or maybe the university itself? I mean, that specific uni.
I don't think it was the problem of the specific... Well, I mean, maybe it was. I guess I didn't go to any other unis, but I don't want to call out the university. I think it was more just a problem of academic culture, I guess. It's like you have to you can't really step outside the lines too much without just being criticized. And I mean, I think I'm almost living proof of that with what I do, with and many other people are, with what I do. Like, I don't make any definitive claims in my YouTube videos. I literally just ask questions that are interesting to me. But then you see some of the hate, I guess I get a lot of criticism for, being pseudo or fake or anti-science, and I'm none of those things. I use science, I talk about science, I showcase papers, I source all the papers that I discuss in all the videos in the description. I just posit possibilities that this could suggest and think, maybe think about that could be the case. I'm not saying it is, but it could be the case. And then, I get attacked for that because,
quote unquote, making up shit.
Yeah, exactly, making up shit. And it's like, in some way, I'm making up hypotheses, I guess, is what I'm making up, but I'm not claiming we have found lost civilizations 200,000 years ago or anything. I'm just saying we can think about it. It's fun to speculate on whether it'd be possible and examine that question seriously, because that isn't a question that really gets examined seriously in academia. No one is out there doing serious research on the possibility that civilization is much, 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 much older than we think, other than alternative voices and thinkers. And so I can't remember what the original question was now, but yeah, that's kind of how I came to do what I do, and yeah, it's fun.
Were you familiar with Graham Hancock at the time?
Yeah, I discovered Graham Hancock during my degree. And yeah, like I can't say I'm not inspired by him, because I am in many ways. I don't agree with everything that he says, or I mean, I don't think he would even agree with everything he says himself. That's the thing. I think he's doing the same thing. He's just putting out possibilities and joining dots and saying maybe this is the.
I think he never said this is definitely
exactly
how it happened.
He never says that, and I never say that. So in that sense, I'm extremely influenced by him. Just the whole being able to look at the story of humanity from a different perspective definitely comes from Hancock, and I think he's inspired so many people around the world in that to view history with that perspective. And while he has theories regarding a lost civilization of the Ice Age before the Younger Dryas and stuff, and I'm not like 100% on board with that, but I fully respect or fully support his. He should have the ability to speak about that and talk about that, and not be brutally attacked for like people called him white supremacists and stuff, and racist for even making those claims. And I think that's so ridiculous. And I think he's a really interesting voice. So yeah, I'm definitely inspired by Graham Hancock and others like him. I wasn't aware of him before my course, but during the course of my study, I did become aware, and that was one of the reasons I started to take a slightly different path.
And what points of his arguments you do not agree with necessarily?
Well, there's a question. I guess I need to think about his arguments. I mean,
have you seen the Ancient Apocalypse series?
I've seen bits of it. I haven't seen every single episode, but I've seen a fair few episodes. And I've read Fingerprints of the Gods, and I've read America before, and I really like lots of what's in it. I mean, there are certain things like say the map, the Piri Reis map. I'm not a big proponent of that map. I think it isn't Antarctica, for example. I just think it's I can't remember. I did do research into this, and I was going to make a video about it, and I remember thinking, and I guess I could have made a video saying the opposite, but I remember coming to the conclusion that I don't think this is a map that's kind of been left over from a Younger Dryas culture, or a knowledge that existed and somehow survived before Antarctica was covered in ice in that region. I remember coming to that conclusion. So it's things like that I don't necessarily agree with, but I don't think Hancock would take any issue with that. I think he would be like, yeah, fair enough. But it's more when you have mainstream people, and I say I don't necessarily agree with this aspect of the mainstream argument, and then it's all the attacks come, which is why I guess I align more with the alternative people, just because it's just way more open-minded sphere of kind of intellectual curiosity, which is where I find myself, I guess. So yeah, I mean, there are many there are a few aspects of his writings and his books that I don't necessarily subscribe to, but that doesn't mean I think they're impossible, and doesn't mean I think he's wrong. I just would say, not sure there's enough evidence to say that is true, and I think he would probably say the same thing. So yeah.
What points of, or what specific new discoveries do you think would break this linear timeline and linear progression idea?
What, that we haven't made, that we would need to make, or that we have made? And
we have made, but maybe it's still not breaking it.
I think one is something I talk about a lot, which is the Kalambo structure. Have you heard of the Kalambo structure? It's a wooden structure that they found from 476,000 years ago in Zambia, and it's basically these pieces of wood that have been joined together through effectively carpentry and interlocked at right angles, rounded ends, tapered ends. And it's effectively structural engineering. They built a structure, whoever these humans were or human ancestors, built a structure, planned it, erected it, and they think it was either like a raised walkway, like some sort of platform, or a house or a hut, like some form of structure. And I think that's a crazy find, because it's so long ago, like it's almost 500,000 years ago. And we've had this idea, I think until very recently, that human beings were not intelligent enough to have the foresight and the cooperation and the planning to be able to design and build a structure anywhere near that long ago. Like, humans weren't supposed to have settled down into permanent communities until only 10,000 years ago with the Neolithic agricultural revolution. And yet here you have evidence that humans were building and living in structures almost 500,000 years ago. And I think that in one case disputes the idea that intelligence is a recent phenomenon, and in the second case disputes the idea that humans have been exclusively nomadic throughout the whole of human history, because if you're building a permanent structure, it suggests that you potentially are living in a permanent location. And the other thing about this structure is it's like
interesting.
It was so unlikely that it would survive. Like the preservation chances of this structure are so minute. It only survived because it fell into a bog, effectively, into sediment, and then that was dried over by the sun, and then the wood miraculously basically preserved, and then we found it as well. Like the chances of us finding and it preserving this wooden structure for almost 500,000 years are just almost zero.
Was it in Zambia?
It was in Zambia, yeah. It was in Zambia. But that also suggests that this, like, it clearly wasn't a rare achievement. Like, I think people would have had that sophistication. This shows that people had that sophistication to build wooden structures, to do structural engineering, to potentially live in a settled, non-nomadic lifestyle 500,000 years ago. And there could have been absolutely loads of these all over the place, but we just have this one that almost by an absolute miracle survived. But what it suggests is that this capacity was already in place, 500,000 years ago. Like, this is older than the oldest Homo sapien fossils we have, and yet we see clear signs of sophistication, intelligence, and potentially a settled life. So I think that's like a really groundbreaking thing. I think it should shift the model of human prehistory quite dramatically, but no one seems to care about it except for me. I mean, it has a tiny little Wikipedia page. But if you think about the fact that that kind of shifts the beginning of structural engineering by 400,000 years, like that's just such a major shift. And if we're that wrong about that, then we could be equally wrong about other developmental claims of our species. So
yeah, we are trying to investigate these predynastic vases, and the main question about that is when was the first time when they had a sophisticated lathe capable of doing those precise geometries. And yeah, it's kind of the same question. But did they found human remains next to this structure, or only the structure itself?
Only the structure itself. They attribute it to a species called Homo heidelbergensis, which is like one step behind, in inverted commas, us, because even if it was them, I don't think they were behind us, because they were showcasing very specific behaviors. But in evolutionary terms, one step behind us.
It's on the same level with the Neanderthals? Or?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a massive debate on, like, are they less intelligent than us? I would say I'm not sure that they were. I'm not sure there's any really evidence that they were. But that's another kind of discussion. But they only attribute it to Homo heidelbergensis because they found Homo heidelbergensis like 200 kilometers away or something. But that's not a very good way of saying that they built this structure just because you found a bone like 100, whatever. That it could have been them, but it also could have been Homo sapiens, and we've just been around longer. Or it could have been a different species entirely. Either way, it was an intelligent human that built that, and incredibly long ago. And I think it's very disruptive.
Well, it's the same situation with the pyramids in Egypt.
Yeah,
they found something inside or inscribed on it, and then that person had to build it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we have the story from Herodotus as well, mentioning Khufu, but what do you think?
About it's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's literally the greatest like engineering achievement of the ancient world, or potentially the entire world until very recently. A massive stone structure that survived at least 5,000 years and is just an incredible achievement. And yet nobody claimed it. Khufu never claimed it. Khafre never claimed his. There's only, I think the thing you're referring to is a piece of workers' graffiti, right? That's
inside one of these small chambers in the relieving chambers.
Yeah,
I think it's Bazzoni chamber.
Yeah,
or one of these.
And it's like workmen of Khufu or something. And that's the only...
The gang of Khufu.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that. Yeah.
So someone who was working for Khufu at some point was inside the pyramid and wrote that.
Well, there are stories that this is a forgery.
Of course, what's his
Could have
name?
been.
Weiss. Is that his name?
Howard Weiss, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just bizarre because there's no depictions of the pyramid being built either. There's no like the Egyptian. There's thousands of Egyptian reliefs showcasing everyday Egyptian life.
You know what was very interesting? I've seen it in, I think it was near to Nubia or Aswan. There was a museum where they had these ostrich egg with 3 pyramid-like structures on it.
Yeah, I've seen that, and that's older than the conventional dating of the pyramids, and it has the Nile on it as well.
Yeah, something. They say it's mountains and maybe a river, but yeah, it's weird. But they could have been also these Kushite pyramids, or maybe it's not Kushite, but Nubian.
Yeah,
The very spiky ones.
But are they older than the Egyptian ones?
I think no, but I'm not knowledgeable.
Yeah, I mean neither am I.
this part.
I don't know too much about ancient Egypt, but I've always found it extremely weird how little we actually have that points to the traditional explanation of the pyramid construction. And like, I don't mind it as a theory, and this is kind of my feeling about the whole of the historical narrative, is I don't mind it as a theory at all. Like, you have evidence and you create a theory about that, but I just have a big problem when it's presented as fact, it's presented as truth, and they say that we know that this is the case because we have this piece of evidence, and we are the institutions, we are the academics, and this is fact, this is truth, and if you challenge this, then you're anti-science or whatever. And I don't like that at all, because it is just a theory. And in the case of the pyramid construction, it's a theory with very questionable evidence and logic. And I'm not saying there's any better evidence to suggest that anyone else built it. Like, I'm not saying we have better evidence to suggest it's older or that the aliens built it or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, it is quite a weak foundation for saying that it's a definite 2500 BC Khufu built this, end of story, using ropes and pulleys. Like, you know, it's it feels a little bit weak, but I don't mind it as a theory. I just hate it when it's presented as truth.
What's your favorite site, ancient site in the world?
See, I haven't been to that many because it's just everything's quite far away for us Europeans.
Have you been to Egypt?
So I haven't been to Egypt yet. I was meant to be going in May, but I had to cancel that. So I don't know when I'm going to go, but I hope to get there at some point.
Göbekli Tepe?
No, I've never been to Göbekli Tepe either. I've never been to Turkey or Egypt. So I've only really been to quite a few sites, like Roman sites and Greece sites and things like that, because of my university course. I've been to Stonehenge. I've been to many of the temples on Malta, which I find really interesting. And I've been to a few other like Neolithic sites in Britain, because we have quite a lot of standing stones and stuff like that, which someone like me nerds out about. But I haven't really been, so I've never been to South America, never been to Egypt, never been to Turkey, never been to Indonesia, never been to Central America.
Amesbury?
Have I? I haven't been there. No,
I think they have a huge...
I should have been to that one, because that's in England.
I'm always mixing it up. Avesbury or Ames?
Avebury, I think. Avebury. I think so.
Yeah.
No, you got me confused. I think it's Avebury.
But there's a huge circle
That's even bigger than Stonehenge.
in the city or town or village.
There's also Newgrange in Ireland, which is very close to me, which I should probably get over to. And there's loads up in the north of Scotland by Orkney and Skara Brae and stuff like that.
Do you know Hugh Newman?
I've met Hugh. Yeah, I do. Well, I don't know if I know him, but I've met him. Yeah, he's cool.
They're organizing quite a lot of tours.
He does lots of tours. Yeah, he's very good with the Stonehenge stuff in Avebury, and he knows a lot more about it than me. But yeah,
I had the pleasure to go with him to the Stonehenge.
Oh yeah.
And also to Amesbury.
Oh yeah.
It was very cool.
Yeah, that's the person you want to go with.
Very
If
cool.
you go to those sites, I think there's almost no one better in the world to go with than Hugh. So yeah, you're lucky.
So you mentioned this 300,000 years old site I think it was in Morocco.
Yes.
Was it a Neanderthal
No, so this was
site or?
Yeah, so they discovered it ages ago in like the 20th century, and they thought it was Neanderthals because of the age, because it's 315,000 years old. But then they reanalyzed the bones in 2018, and they discovered, oh no, this is actually anatomically modern Homo sapiens. And that's why And that pushed back the age of our species by 100,000
Homo
years.
sapiens itself, okay.
Yeah, so we like doubled the age of, or added an extra half onto because we were 200,000 years old at that point. And then just one discovery pushes us back by,
Yeah,
another.
it's funny that I think in the 50s or 60s it was something around 50,000.
Even less, it was like 20,000, yeah. And then it keeps going up and older and older and older and older.
And Ben from Uncharted X talked about these tooth morphology research.
Yes,
They found that the teeth had much more time to evolve to that level.
Yeah.
Since the point when we kind of branched from the Neanderthals.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a study on teeth morphology that suggests that Neanderthal teeth had to have had a certain amount of time to evolve since the divergence, which puts the divergence between 700 and 800,000 years ago. But then there's also this skull. I don't know if you saw the news that came out towards in autumn last year of this skull they found in China called the Yungshan 2 skull, which has a modern brain case, and they attribute to Homo longi, which is very similar to Denisovan, which is kind of like a sister species of us. So it's like us, Neanderthal, Denisovan, and the divergence must have come before that. And this skull was 1 million years old, and it had a modern-sized brain case and was found in China. So that potentially pushes back the age of Homo sapiens, or at least the lineage that became Homo sapiens, modern Homo sapiens, back another 400,000 years, another 500,000 years.
I think the tooth morphology was also pushing it back to 1 million or 900,000.
Yeah, exactly. So it's around that. And like the genetic data suggests it's slightly more modern, but then you have fossil evidence that suggests maybe the divergence was over 1 million years ago. And one of the scientists involved in that study literally said, this suggests that there may be 1 million year old Homo sapien fossils somewhere on the planet. We just haven't found them yet. And it strongly suggests, if it's right, that the modern human brain size has been around for 1 million years. So then you think about if a modern human brain size, and obviously brain size doesn't necessarily mean intelligence, but if we're already at that point 1 million years ago, or whatever became us is already at that point 1 million years ago, then, are we sure that no large-scale complexity happened until 3,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago, or whenever the traditional birth of civilization is put 5,000 years ago? Or even Göbekli Tepe in Tashtapela, it's only 12,000 years ago. It's literally the blink of an eye right at the most recent point of human history. And it does feel a little bit to me like recency bias and preservation bias, because the further back you go in time, the less evidence survives, right? And so we just have this empty, blank, dark cloud hovering over our history, and we just say, yeah, nothing happened. We just walked around as hunter-gatherers. And like the mainstream accept that hunter-gatherers were clever, that they were smart now. They didn't used to, but they did. But they do accept that now. But they
since Göbekli Tepe.
I guess so. That did kind of change the landscape. But they used to say that other human species were dumb and prehistoric Homo sapiens were also dumb. That has changed now. Then it's now very much, Homo sapiens 100,000 years ago were very sophisticated. They just lived in a different way. But they still think that they still promote this idea that they all lived in a way of just hunting, gathering food, and walking around in small groups of nomadic people. And I'm sure lots of humans did do that throughout the whole of prehistory. In fact, that probably was the main operating procedure of society throughout human history. But there's so many variations. Humans are such adaptable animals, and we lived in so many different places, and we respond to challenges in so many different ways, that I think this idea that was all that humans did for 99.99% of our history until the agricultural revolution is a little bit simplistic, and it's a bit of a silly model in my view. But
which branch, or let's say, did Homo sapiens or Neanderthals had bigger skulls or brain?
I think Neanderthals had slightly bigger brains and skulls, yeah.
And is it considered to be truth that they were smarter than us?
So, I don't know about smarter. They always used to be thought of as stupider than us. That's kind of like in popular culture, I think people still think that. People would maybe insult someone by calling them a dumb Neanderthal or something. Like, you kind of think of them as like some big, brutish, ape-like man that's not very clever. But in recent decades, there's been so much evidence to suggest that Neanderthals were at least as intelligent as Homo sapiens. Like, they created arts, they built massive underground circles for ceremonial purposes, they buried their dead, they built boats and sailed across the Mediterranean, they colonized the island of Crete, they used medicinal plants to treat illnesses, they made glue, they what else did they do? They did loads of stuff. They created really sophisticated art.
Wow.
They did all the things that were traditionally used to distinguish Homo sapiens for the rest as being smart. We now found that Neanderthals did those things also. And they did complex hunting. They did everything that was used to be said that made Homo sapiens different. We now know Neanderthals did as well. So where is the evidence that Homo sapiens were smarter than Neanderthals? Well, I guess the evidence is that we're still here and that we survived and that we created this incredible civilization that we live in. But other than that, there's not so much archaeological evidence that they were doing anything less smart than Homo sapiens were doing at the same time. And also, did they even die out? Did we win, or did we kill them with disease, or did we interbreed with them? Like, we still carry Neanderthal DNA, so we did interbreed with them. So I think it's a very complex question about why they, quote unquote, lost, but I don't think it was because they were less smart than us.
Probably autism or something else is linked to the Neanderthal DNA.
I did see something like that, yeah.
So my question is it possible that their genes or DNA was just not very, let's say, lucky
Maybe
to survive, and maybe the interbreeding with sapiens killed them all?
we had like more dominant genes, maybe. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows, and it's another one of the great mysteries of history. Really, is why did we survive? Why did all the other human species not? Especially Neanderthals and Denisovans, who were so similar to us. I mean, the fact that we could breed with them just shows how similar we were to them.
Yeah, we were compatible, basically.
Exactly. So they were basically the same thing as us. So.
But I'm surprised you mentioned they were building tools and medicine and glue and these kind of stuff. So what do you consider then ancient technology?
What do I consider ancient? Well, I think whatever.
Was it an advanced technology in your opinion, or it was just smart compared to their limits and possibilities?
Well, everything's technology, right? Even like even a flint stone is technology that you're using to do something. But the question is, when does it become advanced? So, I mean, Neanderthals had very advanced technology. If you think about it, they had bows and arrows 80,000 years ago. We know that now. And that's a very sophisticated piece of weapons technology, right? Like building a bow, and it's aerodynamic, and you're shooting something from far away. Again, that was something that we used to think that only Homo sapiens could do. So they had sophisticated technology. As I said, they used plants to treat medicines. They built boats and stuff like that. So they had technology. Depends where you draw the line of advanced, though. Like, I don't think there's any evidence they had cell phones or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, not saying that never happened in prehistory, but there's zero evidence for that, I would say. But I think they had all the technology that Homo sapiens was supposed to have had up until the agricultural revolution.
I mean, sailing the Atlantic, for example, would be considered advanced for the prehistoric people, because even if there are some evidences, for example, Thor Heyerdahl or the Ra or Kon-Tiki expedition in the late 60s, 80s, they don't think that the prehistoric people sailed the Atlantic.
Yeah.
I mean, the mainstream says that the first person was Columbus, or the first voyage.
Yeah. See, it's a difficult question, isn't it? I mean, there are a few weird finds in the Americas that suggest possible connection to the old world. I mean, I think, to be honest, that it's now becoming clear that Columbus wasn't the first, and that the Vikings reached North America.
The Kensington runestone.
Yeah, exactly. But that's still kind of the same era of history, roughly speaking. The question is more whether did something happen much earlier.
Much earlier.
Of question. I mean, the answer is I don't know. I think the theory that, I mean, I guess there's two. There's the sail the Atlantic theory, and then there's the kind of island hop across the Pacific theory from like Australasia. I think there's potentially more credence to that theory. There's that weird DNA signal in South America. I think it's called the Y signal, which is only found in oceanic Australasian populations and South American populations. Which is weird because across the whole land migratory route, which these people supposedly walked, you don't find it anywhere, but you find it here and here. So like maybe they went across. Who knows? I mean, the whole question of when humans first reached the Americas is like completely wide open in my view now, because obviously it used to be Clovis first 13,000 years ago, but then they found Monte Verde, which was older. They found Bluefish Caves, which was 10,000 years older. Now the oldest we have is White Sands footprints in New Mexico, which is 23,000 years ago. So that's 10,000 years older than Clovis.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I mean, what do you want me to talk about White Sands? Or?
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with that.
Yeah. So
what's that?
It's footprints. They're footprints that they found in New Mexico in White Sands National Park, and they dated the footprints through seeds, I think, that were crushed into the. I can't quite remember specifically how they did it, but it's been verified by like multiple different studies now, and it's accepted by the mainstream as the oldest confirmed evidence of humans in the Americas at 22 to 23,000 years ago. So that's so much older than Clovis, and it's also older than this ice-free corridor that supposedly was when the first humans migrated through. So I think it completely opens up the question of how long humans have been in the Americas, right? Because now we don't have a start point. We don't, because it's also quite far south as well. So we don't have a start point of when humans first arrived there. And then you start looking at many of the sites across the two continents that are very controversial, but do hint at a much earlier human presence. So like the one a lot of people talk about is the Saruti Mastodon site, right? Which you've possibly heard of. This is these mastodon bones in California that are 130,000 years old that were discovered that look like they've been broken by humans to kind of get inside to the marrow. And there's stone tools next to them in inverted commas. So it looks like deliberate human breakage, and you have stone tools next to it. Now it's debated because people say the breakage is accidental and those aren't tools, they're just natural formations. But a lot of people think, and this was literally published in Nature, which is, the most mainstream scientific journal of them all, and it says, possible archaeological site 130,000 years ago in California. And obviously that would blow absolutely everything out of the water if humans had been in California 130,000 years ago. That's like, more than 100,000 years earlier than we traditionally thought. So there's that site. There's other weird sites. There's one called Hueyatlaco in Mexico, which they found human tools beneath a layer of volcanic ash that was dated by multiple different dating methods to around 250,000 years old, which is even older. We're getting older and older and older here. Problem with that site is the tools that were discovered. This was all written up in scientific reports, and it was presented as this conclusion that it was 250,000 years old, but the tools were confiscated and seized, and now no one knows where they are, so you can't prove it. We just have these scientific reports from the 60s saying that they found tools under this ash from 250,000 years ago. So there's all these sites that kind of hint at the possibility of human presence in the Americas way, 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 way older than we've thought, but it's just impossible to prove it, other than White Sands, which I think has kind of opened the whole question up again. So yeah, it's weird. It's interesting.
Do you think that Göbekli Tepe kind of restarted or initiated the rethink of the idea when civilization started and what the prehistoric people were capable of, like hunter-gatherers versus complex societies? Because from the mainstream side, it looks like nothing really happened. We just shifted how the hunter-gatherers lived or what they were capable of. And from the alternative researchers' side, it looks like, yeah, this is the evidence what, for example, Zahi Hawass was looking for when someone asked is it possible that the Sphinx is much older? Show me the tools, show me the civilization which is older, and here we go.
Yeah, well, exactly, because it's that famous video of is it Hawara with someone? Yeah, I know what you mean. Where they're like they're talking about the Sphinx being possibly that age 12,000 years ago, and he's like, show me the pottery, or show me the civilization that existed 12,000 years ago. There is none, and now we have something that, in my view, ticks pretty much every single box of the traditional definition of civilization. The only problem is the date, right? It's so much older. It's 12,000 years ago rather than 6,000 years ago. It's literally double the age, pretty much, of the accepted date of civilization. But Göbekli Tepe, and Göbekli Tepe is crucial to view it in the context of the wider culture, which they call Tashtapela. So you have Göbekli Tepe with its massive megalithic architecture and its stone circles and its incredibly intricate carvings and the sheer amount of coordination and labor that would have gone into building such a huge site that's 50 times larger than Stonehenge, and all these incredible things about Göbekli Tepe. And it's like, wow on its own. But then when you consider there's something like 14 other sites that are all similar, they all share the same iconography.
Even
so they
older.
have the shared kind of symbolic traditions, megalithic architecture in all of them. So it's a society that was clearly interconnected, structured around these megalithic complexes and wider, because they're now finding residential buildings at Göbekli Tepe. So what are we saying here? It ticks every single box of civilization. You have the social stratification because people don't build this without, some people being in charge and other people specializing in different labors, and some people being the artisan, some people being the quarryman, some people doing the building, stuff like that. You have residential buildings, you have shared religion, you have trade because they're all connected. We even have the I don't know if you saw this, but they found a stone at Göbekli Tepe that looks like a stamp seal. So that's something that you kind of stamp to ratify and to it's kind of like a form of writing effectively, and it's very similar to the kind of hieroglyphic symbols we find in ancient Sumer. And
they invented bureaucracy.
Exactly, because the argument always was writing came from the need to have civilization, to have bureaucracy, and yet now we have something that needed organization, Göbekli Tepe, and we have something that looks like a stamp seal. And this is the argument that an Assyriologist from the British Museum called Dr. Irving Finkel actually makes, and he's a mainstream a mainstream academic, and he makes the argument that the people who built Tashtapela almost certainly had a form of writing. So we're like ticking off every single box of traditional civilization. The only one we're missing is agriculture, because we have no proof that they did like widespread agriculture to sustain themselves. And so the mainstream are like, well, look, they were still hunter-gatherers, and this is the transition. This is what they say. They say this is the transition from hunter-gatherer to settled life. But is that not just another way of saying this is the dawn of civilization?
But we found the grinding stones they use for the seeds to make food, probably.
That's true. There is evidence of small scale agriculture in that region. So even that box, I would say, is at a half tick. It's at like a maybe. So I mean, I don't really know what we're doing when we like. It's just a matter of semantics. Like, they don't want to call it a civilization, I don't think, purely because of that reason, but to all intents and purposes, it is. And then also, when you look at other civilizations around the globe that are considered civilizations, they don't tick every single box. Like, you have Mesoamerican civilizations that didn't have written language, and yet they're considered a civilization because the date is correct, because they're more recent than 3000 BC. So I think it will change in time. I think over the next few decades, people will come to consider Göbekli Tepe. I mean, they basically already are. They just aren't saying it. So, I mean, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it shows that people were doing very complex things, undeniably, 12,000 years ago. So that links into things like the age of the Sphinx, which is relatively nearby.
I didn't know they found housing and the houses where the Göbekli Tepe people were residing.
Yeah, they
residential
found that
buildings
in the last few years. Yeah, residential buildings, which settled life, like people living megalithic complexes. Like, come on, it's a civilization. What are we doing?
What do you think they used it for? I mean, the circles. Do you have a theory, or do you have a preferred theory?
Not really. I mean, I'm not too deep in the kind of Göbekli Tepe. Some people are really deep into it, like, you know, like saying it's like matching constellations and that it's almost like, some people say it's like a kind of record of like a cosmic event. I'm not really I haven't really dove into any of that stuff. I think, I mean, complete guess, it was probably just the kind of center of a civilization, the center of a culture, right? This was the place where they worshipped. This was the place where they congregated.
Is it the ancient Wembley?
Ancient Wembley, yeah, exactly, kind of, in some ways, yeah. I mean, it's hard to know, isn't it, what it was? But whatever it was clearly very sophisticated and clearly had meaning and was the reflection, the expression of that culture that existed. And the fact that there's so many of them all dotted around this region shows it must have been a really thriving civilization in its day. So, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it's not like it's dismissed by the mainstream. Like they do talk about it quite a lot, but I think it definitely changed our understanding of civilization, our understanding of human history, and I wish that would be recognized more.
I don't think it's in the school books yet, or in a way that we are talking about it right now.
Possibly not. I mean, I'm sure it's in archaeology textbooks now, but I mean, but they literally say it is the transition from hunter-gatherer to settled agricultural life, and that is the dawn of civilization. So they are conceding it. They're just not saying it explicitly. It's just it will change in time. I think once, you know, the old guard moves on and the new kind of generation comes into leading the conversation, then I think people
few
will be
more
like,
funerals.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's that quote, isn't it? Max Planck. Science progresses one funeral at a time, and I think that is true.
Well, what do you think? What should be the first? Organized religion, engineering, or astronomy? Based on your studies or knowing more about the ancient people, what should have been the first? Or are they have to be in an order, specific order? One is relying upon the other one.
Wait, what were the options again? Astronomy?
Religion, engineering, and astronomy.
Religion, engineering, or astronomy?
Yeah, are they intertwined or meaning, should a society which has advanced engineering has also to have religion or astronomy? Are they fulfilling each other, or there is an order which we have seen in the past?
I think
I don't know if you get my
no, I think do they like
question.
complement each other, and like do they
can they exist independently? So one specific civilization will only have advanced engineering and they will be not religious, or the other one will be only religious but it's not coming together with the engineering part.
I think every civilization and every culture of humans has probably been religious since we had the capability to do that in our brains, and I think that probably would have come first. I think that would have come like way back, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years ago. We would have had as soon as we had the ability to think symbolically, we would have, I think, created, and I think this is almost our great evolutionary superpower, is this idea to think in the abstract, to think symbolically about things, to create myths that we can use to work together as a larger group. Because if we all agree that the sun god, we're doing this all for the sun god, and this is like the sun god culture, we can all group together in a massive group. But if we didn't have that ability, then we wouldn't be able to cooperate in such large groups. Like, this is why chimps can only cooperate in groups of up to 50, and then they split into two different tribes and they fight each other because they can't create a founding myth to cooperate around. Like, you can get so many humans to cooperate in massive groups because they all believe in the same myth, like a
greater god.
Exactly, yeah. And it doesn't even have to be like a god. In the modern world, it's like a country. Like the whole US Army like works because of the myth of America. And I'm not saying America's not real, but it's not real in like a physical sense. You can't grab hold of America. It's a shared myth that we all believe in. So I think that
by order of the Peaky Blinders.
yeah, exactly. So things like that. So I think that being able to like conceptualize abstract symbolic meaning and therefore create religion has been present in every human society since the dawn of human societies, would be my hypothesis. So I think that probably came first. And then I think that was probably intertwined with astronomy, because what would people have done every night? They would have looked up at the stars, and that would have been part of the myths that they create for their culture. Engineering, I think, would probably be the last one, because that's slightly more difficult in terms of your using the physical world. I think basic engineering, like creating wooden structures, also would have been as old as we've been around. I think like stone engineering, with big stone, like proper engineering, like the kind of complexes we see around the world that do seem to be lined up with astronomy and things like that I think would be much later. I'm not saying it's starting when the mainstream said it starts, but I think that would have been the last piece of the puzzle, if that makes sense. I think we would have had religion and myth and astronomy, because they used astronomy to navigate and stuff like that. Like, I think that would have all come first, and then that would have been the basis in which they built these cultures around, because their culture would be based around the myth that they created, and then they would have built the buildings and the megalithic architecture of their civilization because of that kind of spiritual belief, which potentially is tied to the stars. I think that would be my view on the order of how those things happen. But so I don't think you need each one for each other, but I think they can kind of naturally complement, and that's why you see such astronomical alignments in so many sites across the world.
Do you believe that there was a much more different and in some sort advanced technology in the past has been forgotten?
Depends what you mean by advanced, really.
I mean, if you just look at Egypt, those stoneworks, the statues, the vases, the transportation of the stones. I know that there are a lot of explanations, mainstream explanations, that you can load boats with these huge 100-ton megaliths. And I think there were some studies, there were some experimental archaeologists studying these, but there is no fulfilling evidence, or that there is no 100% solid evidence that it was the case, and if it's possible at all.
Yeah, I mean, you probably know a lot more about, Ancient Technology Podcast, you probably know a lot more about the kind of the minutiae of this debate right now happening regarding ancient Egyptian engineering and the potential for technology and machining that they possibly had, or someone possibly had. I would say my perspective of it is that clearly the Egyptians had capabilities that we don't attribute them to them, or that rather the mainstream doesn't attribute to them. I think there's too much precision and too much sophistication for the kind of mainstream model of extremely basic technology is all that the mainstream attribute to them.
They attribute all these to the Egyptians, but they say that they had enough time, slavery, and copper and stone.
Exactly.
And beers.
Exactly. It's basically the things that this is like back to what I said at the start. They refuse to, it's only what they found they say could be possible, rather than kind of making a logical jump. So yeah, I think there's, and this is the kind of stuff that Ben from Uncharted X like does so much great work on. I think there's so much evidence for precision across not just Egypt, but also quite a lot of the stonework in South America as well, that suggests that someone at some point did have more or different types of technology than we attribute them to these cultures, and they were more sophisticated than we possibly say that they were, because otherwise it just doesn't quite make sense how they achieved the levels of precision that we see on some of these monuments and in some of the stonework. And and things like that. Again, it's not something I particularly have delved too deeply into, mainly because there are people like yourself and people like Ben out there that are like doing it really well, and I feel like I haven't really got so much more to add, because like I just leave like I sometimes say that, like I just defer to these people, like they're doing it better than me. I mean, maybe one day I could dive into it, but like I don't come from an engineering background. Do you know what I mean? I come from a very kind of artsy kind of, I'm like a classic kind of history kind of person. I did history at university. I have no knowledge of like how things need to be built, like what you need to build something, and I don't come from things with an engineering perspective, so it's not something that I can really like say like, oh, this definitely needed this kind of drill to do or whatever. Like I'm just not smart in that way, so I kind of just like leave it to them. But I do see these arguments being made by many people, and I do think there's merit to them, and I've never seen anyone kind of debunk them particularly convincingly. So it's very interesting.
Do you think that mainstream is conservative, accepting these new theories because they have to be conservative? Otherwise, every new idea would be published or accepted. So is it more like that they want to close out any possibilities for these advanced technologies, or it's more like they have to be more they have to question these new ideas much more, otherwise there would be tons of them and half or 90% of them would be just rubbish?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think some people, because the mainstream isn't like a thing, like we all refer to like the mainstream as like this like big like enveloping cloud
Let's
of
say
doom.
Academia.
Yeah, exactly. Well, academia, but anyway, it's not really like a thing. It's like a collection of individuals, right? And some of them are more open-minded, and some of them are very against anything because they've built careers on a certain narrative about history, and they don't want to see that taken away from them because that takes away their power as knowledge keepers. And
I'm just curious if it's true or if it's just a myth.
Yeah,
that they want to be the gatekeepers.
Well, I think some do. I think some hate anyone questioning anything, but I think some are more open, but just want to see more definitive evidence before kind of stepping off the ship or onto another ship, if that makes sense. And I think that's a fair enough position to take. I think you know, it's that old phrase like extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, or whatever that phrase is.
Evidence. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not against that, but I think I just think there are so many questions about this, and I wish it would be I wish it wasn't purely alternative researchers kind of exploring these engineering questions. But I think the problem is many of the people who do archaeology or history for a living in the mainstream are people like me, people who come from non-engineering backgrounds, non-mathematics backgrounds, people who are art students basically, who like writing essays and don't know anything about what it takes to build something, you know. And these are the kind of people that are analyzing these sites, and they say, oh well, then it must have just been these chisels that we found because that's what we found. But then you get experts in engineering come in and they have a different point of view, and I think the mainstream archaeological community is very bad at taking points and ideas from people who aren't archaeologists, who aren't Egyptologists, because they're like, we're the archaeologists, we're the expert on the ancient civilizations, you're not. But I think we're all a very certain type of person, which is someone like me who isn't an expert at all in what it takes to build something. Like, I've never built anything in my life. Like, I know nothing about what it takes to engineer any kind of like stone work or anything like that. And I think many archaeologists are like that. So that's why when you have someone like Chris Dunn, who is from a science background, and even Ben, who is from a kind of technology background, come in, and many other engineers, and they see these things and they say there's no way, like the precision of some of the statues and the symmetry and stuff like that, like they see it from their perspective and they think that is very difficult to achieve. And people like me just think, yeah, it's like a good statue, but I have no idea how hard it is to achieve that level of precision because I know nothing about engineering. So I think that's part of the problem. Again, I've forgotten your original question. I've just gone on to some massive waffle, but
I'm just curious if it's what the most of the alternative researchers are telling, that the mainstream is reluctant to believe these new ideas, or they are not open-minded. Is it the reality that most of them are like this, or is just a very few people on social media from the mainstream who are doing this?
I think there's a very loud minority of archaeologists who are on social media and have almost made it their duty to attack anything that's not within the mainstream paradigm.
To debunk.
Anything, yeah, exactly, that's not within the mainstream paradigm. But I don't think that's representative of
the academic circles.
Of the academics. Well, I mean, I don't know, because obviously I'm not within them. And obviously I'm very exposed to these.
You're not in connection with any...
Not in terms, like, not really, no. Like,
not
have
professionally or...
No, I have no connections with actual academics, really, other than people that, I mean, I occasionally get emails from people and stuff like that, but I'm not like invited to, you know, I don't converse with academics any more than the normal person on Twitter, like, do you know what I mean? So, but I think there's a very loud minority that kind of give archaeology a bad rep. I think there is probably quite a lot of archaeologists who are just interested in the past and probably more open-minded to different theories than some, but I think they all come back to the quite fair position, I think, which is that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and until they see extraordinary evidence, they're not going to jump ship. And I think that's fair enough.
I think Ben usually quotes Chris Dunn, who had this nice phrase that if an archaeologist finds an ancient chair, even if the person is not a chair builder expert, but they know every aspect of the chair they found as an expert.
Yeah.
Or they claim they know every aspect, how it was built, what do you need to build that. And it's I think it's describing also the idea that you wanted to express a few minutes ago. You made a nice video about Hawara.
Yes.
What do you think it will change or how will it change our understanding, and why is it possible again? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was kind of forbidden for quite long.
Yeah.
To excavate and to explore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's also the problem of the water, right? So I mean, I think there's a...
Can we describe Hawara for the audience who might not know?
So Hawara is a pyramid south of Giza. But there's always been stories way back to ancient times. I'm talking ancient Greek, ancient Roman times, about the lost labyrinth of ancient Egypt. So you have writers such as Herodotus writing about this incredible achievement of Egyptian engineering that he said was greater than the pyramids in terms of splendor and grandeur and things like that. And people should watch Ben's video on it, because he did a great video on everything that's going on. But basically, there's always been a testament to a grand labyrinth of ancient Egypt from ancient writings. But in the modern world, we never had any evidence of its existence. So we always thought either it was made up by the ancient writers or it's long gone. But then they, the British Egyptologist Flinders Petrie discovered the location of the labyrinth in the 19th century, but he thought it was gone and he just found the foundation, and that became the kind of modern archaeological Egyptological narrative about the labyrinth. They were like, okay, it was at Hawara, it was beneath this pyramid, we have the foundation, but it's gone now, there's nothing left. But then in 2008 they had the Matterhorn expedition led by Louis de Cordier, and they did scans from kind of like satellite scanning, and they looked beneath the plains at Hawara by the pyramid, and they found this, you know, their results showed this like incredible grid-like pattern that looks just like a labyrinth that's still down there. And then that was kind of backed up by other scans from a company called Merlin Burroughs and a man named Tim Akers, who produced even more detailed scans of the area, and they kind of corroborated these results and saw that there were what looked exactly like what the ancient writers were describing still existing beneath the sands of Hawara. So obviously that's a very exciting thing. I think the controversy came when because they were, at least Louis de Cordier was working in alignment with the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities and Zahi Hawass, but he wasn't allowed to publish his scan results because they said it was like, the excuse was it was something that it was like a national security threat or something. I can't quite remember what the Egyptian authorities' reasoning was, why they couldn't publish it. So eventually right on the iPad, oh no, eventually he published it himself on his own website, and people like Ben became aware of it and put it out there, and he spoke about it on Rogan as well, really well, and now lots of people know about it. And it's something I think that if it was excavated, and there's this problem that I mentioned about the water, which is that they built a canal during the Victorian times, which for modern farming irrigation purposes, that has kind of flooded the whole subsurface area, but they seem to think that that hasn't directly damaged the labyrinth itself. So if they can somehow sort out the water problem and get the water out of the way without destroying the farming in the region and destroying the ancient ruins beneath, I think if they could get down there and actually look at what is still down there, it could, at the very least, be an incredible find for our understanding of ancient Egypt and ancient Egyptian engineering and ancient Egyptian life. But at the very most, it could like completely disrupt the whole model of history, to be honest, because there's lots of weird things about it. So,
would you think it would change or do you think it would change the timeline of ancient Egypt or our understanding of the Egyptian timeline?
It depends what they find, I guess. I mean,
if they found just half of the claimed
that's the thing.
Structure.
So, I mean, who was it? I think it was Diodorus Siculus, who was an ancient writer, who wrote that it was built before the time of the pharaohs. So if he's right, then that would change the timeline, of course, because it means someone was building sophisticated engineering
in predynastic Egypt.
In predynastic Egypt that, as Herodotus said, matched or improved upon the pyramids. So that would obviously tear everything up if they could date it to a time that was earlier than the Egyptian pharaohs. There's those weird scans that kind of show like a metallic object that's shaped like a tic tac, which Joe Rogan was extremely excited about, of course, as we all are. Who knows what that is? Why is it coming up as a weird metallic signature? Why is it shaped like a tic tac? Why is it so big? Why is it buried underground? Like all these questions, like what could that be? That could be many things that would, rewrite our understanding of ancient Egypt. So, I just wish, it seems like it's so close. We know something's down there, and we know it's valuable for our understanding of ancient Egyptian history at the very least. I just wish we could find a way to actually get in there and look at it, but God knows.
Do you think our current timeline or understanding of the ancient Egyptian timeline is correct?
I would suspect probably not. That would be my opinion.
Why?
I just think there's so much about it that doesn't add up. There's so much, like the whole construction of the pyramids seems to have just been shoehorned into that particular period of Egyptian history just because that's the only place it can go, but it doesn't really seem to, as we were speaking about earlier, there's so many hoops that they're jumping through to put it into that era. So like the Old Kingdom being this like incredible, like short period of like ridiculously like efficient and advanced architectural achievement, and then just forgetting how to do it again straight away. So like Egyptian dynastic Egypt started, they built like a couple of like dodgy pyramids, and then suddenly they were like producing the most incredibly precise structures that humans have ever made, effectively made out of stone, transporting these millions of like multi-ton blocks from quarries ages away. And there's so many things about the pyramid that are just don't, and all in 20 years or whatever. It just, that doesn't make sense. Then there's all the other things. There's like the unfinished obelisk of Aswan. There's the statues that they transported across the country, and that are just single slab statues. Like, how do they do that? How do they carve it? There's so much, and I'm not an expert
Colossi
on
of Memnon.
Colossi, yeah, exactly. Those two statues. There are just many, many, many aspects of Egypt that I think, and the vases, the kind of stuff that you guys are looking into, and there's just so many things that I can't even remember half of them now.
Do you think the King's List is something like...
the whole Zep Tepi thing? Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at their own mythology, they think of themselves as the kind of inheritors of an older civilization. They think of themselves as the legacy of people that were more advanced that came before them. And that's interesting when you tie it in with all these things that don't seem to quite line up with the abilities and the capabilities of the ancient Egyptians that we know about. So that's a weird one. And then, of course, you tie that into the potential older dating of the Sphinx. And I mean, there's just so much. And this is the thing about, there's just so many mysteries in ancient Egypt that I don't know if they're all, like, all the theories aren't all correct. Like, as in the alternative theories, they can't all be correct. But I also would be hesitant to say they're all incorrect either. I think there's something there. I think there's some mystery there. There's something older going on there. There's some sophistication we haven't quite accepted there. So yeah, I think I think that's the place, really, isn't it? That is the civilization that's the most mysterious. How are they so advanced? How are they so advanced so quickly? Why do they get worse the kind of later their civilization goes on? Like, that defies how civilizations usually develop. And why did they emerge just as the climate flipped to something way worse? That's another question. Like the whole Green Sahara question. Like, why was the Sahara a green paradise, the perfect place for civilization, right up until when ancient Egyptian dynastic Egypt emerged? Civilizations don't usually flourish after the climate gets worse. That's the opposite of how it usually happens. What was happening during the Green Sahara? Who knows? There's lots of mystery there, I think.
Do you think there's a lost civilization which is could have been a lost civilization prior to the dynastic Egyptians?
I think there's a good possibility of that, yeah. I think there's a strong possibility that either Egypt is much older than we think, or there was another civilization in the Sahara region that collapsed and then kind of rebirthed into what we call dynastic Egypt. That would be my take on it. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not an expert in ancient Egypt. I just find it endlessly fascinating, and I think there's so many people out there doing it that know more than me about it. So I just kind of leave them to it.
Is there a site or a specific location you
Want to go,
or you feel that you have the most knowledge amongst all?
Well, I think my kind of specialism, or what's become my specialism, is this whole question of prehistory and the developmental timeline of the human species and other human species. So when it actually comes to Göbekli Tepe, maybe we could use that as the kind of line, then I kind of defer to people that, really examine these civilizations, and people looking at ancient Egypt and the South American civilizations and stuff like that. I think what I more focus on, or I'm starting to more focus on, is prehistory, is the developmental path of humans and how sophisticated we were, and how I believe that we've been sophisticated for a far longer time into the past, and even we've been a species for a far longer time than the mainstream model permits. I think that's kind of where I focus on. So it's not so much a specific site, it's more of a
or civilization, or
yeah. So what civilization do I know the most about? Don't really know, to be honest. None of them. I'm just a fan, to be honest. I'm just a fan. I wouldn't say I'm like a highly specialist on any of these civilizations in particular. I mean, yeah, I'm just interested in them.
You want to look at the big picture.
Yeah, exactly. More of a kind of big picture, human story kind of pattern kind of guy, rather than a...
Do you think the human civilizations are cyclical?
Yeah, well, I mean, possibly. I think it is at least a model that's worth considering, that we've reached levels of like pretty high sophistication before, and then collapsed due to some kind of pressure or climate chaos or something like that. I think that's definitely because the current model of just linear progression at a very, very low level, and technology not really changing for literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years before the agricultural revolution, occurring in multiple separate unconnected places at pretty much the exact same time, and then everything exploding. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. So I am very open to other ways of interpreting it. So whether that be a cyclical version of history, potentially we reached levels of high sophistication before, but on smaller scales. Like say we had like a very some people somewhere, I don't know, in the Amazon had a very sophisticated culture 50,000 years ago or something, and then it collapsed and then it disappeared and then it happened again. Like I'm very open to that. And I think that's almost more logical than this linear, like it just doesn't make sense to me. I think it's a very simplistic way of looking at history, and I think it's a way of looking at history that was born out of mental models that were developed in the kind of birth of archaeology around 100 years ago, when we started thinking about history and we had very limited evidence, and we created this model because we thought, oh, humans are only 40,000 years old, and then we kind of roamed around for a bit and then invented agriculture 10,000 years ago. It made sense then, but now that we know that a modern human brain size has been around for 1 million years, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore that an intelligent being could be walking around for so long and not really make any technological progress until what just so happens to be very recently. So,
is it possible to make any studies regarding this if we look at the remains or brain structure or anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem is the preservation problem, right? So it does kind of end up becoming an argument of this could be possible, but we can't prove it. And I'm aware of that because I mean, that's what I talk about, but it's really hard to find any materials that survive when you get up to these huge time spans. It's like almost nothing can survive unless by an extreme case of luck beyond the mark of about 100,000 years. Like it's extremely unlikely. And we do find things, but they're almost exclusively stone, because that's the only thing that can really survive, is carved stone. And even that has been changed quite a lot. And we occasionally find like wooden artifacts like the Kalambo structure that I mentioned, but only in very extreme cases of preservation.
I came across an article which was mentioning a wooden structure, wooden tools, dated to 200,000 BC. I cannot tell you which kind of, I think it was maybe a boat or some kind of wooden
I don't think it would have been
tool.
a boat, because the oldest boat is very recent, though they found. I mean, we should talk about seafaring in a minute, because that's another interesting question. But yeah, I think it would probably, I think I know what you mean. It would have been, I think it would have been some kind of spear or.
Yeah, probably.
Or maybe.
I don't remember exactly.
But yeah, like we do occasionally find things that have been almost remarkably preserved.
In bogs.
In bogs and things like that. But like, an interesting way of looking at it is, so Homo sapiens have been around for 350,000 years, whatever, modern Homo sapiens. Older than 100,000 years ago, we only have 9 sites that are Homo sapien. So that's to cover a time period of 250,000 years. And we just have 9 tiny little snapshots. Like that is a tiny statistical sample to extrapolate out from and say, we now know what every single human was doing for 250,000 years because we have like 9 moments in time from all across Eurasia in that huge time span. Like if you were a statistician in any other kind of discipline, you would not say that's a sufficient sample size to make any kind of conclusion about that, because it's just so small. It's like, okay, we know what 9 humans were doing at 9 separate points in 250,000 years. Like it's nothing. And I don't think many people appreciate just how little evidence actually survives from past 100,000 years and further back. And especially when you get past like 500,000 years and going back, like there's almost nothing. So we don't really know what humans were doing. And I think that's the interesting point that I make. Now that obviously does not mean that they were doing like crazy advanced civilizations or anything like that, but it also means you can't really rule anything out. So yeah.
Do you think there are a lot of stuff still underwater, even related to prehistory?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think it's almost unquestionable because of the way the sea levels have been up and down throughout the time that we've been on the planet, and the fact that we human societies have always built by the coast, right? Like even today, like many of the biggest, most important cities in the world are built on the coast for obvious reasons, like access to trade, access to water to irrigate farmland, and there's just many reasons why human cultures are built by the coasts. And even in ancient history, we see that, like so many of the famous cities are built either on a river just in from the coast or on the coast. And then when you consider that sea levels rose 120 meters just 12,000 years ago or 13,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age, like that's vast swathes of the most likely place that humans would have been doing sophisticated things wiped from the map. And then, so what would you expect to find if it's all underwater? Like you've got the whole Sunda Shelf, you've got the whole of Doggerland, you've got basically the whole outline of North America and South America would have been underwater. I always post this map of sea levels before and after the rise at the end of the last ice age, and it's so much land that would have been the prime real estate for people to build upon, and it's all underwater now. And the erosion underwater is brutal because it's salt water and it's rising water in it. It's not good for preserving archaeological remains. So that's another thing. And then if you think about how many times sea levels have been up and down by 100 meters throughout the time that we've been on the planet, there's just so much potential for cultures that could have built and could have been very sophisticated just being erased. And then also, it's not just sea levels. Like the most likely place for humans to build, even not by the seas, are in places that are kind of lush and humid. And these are the places that are terrible at preserving materials. So like in the Amazon jungle, when they found those, there's the story of the explorer de Orellana who went through the Amazon River and saw all these fabulous cities and stuff that we now know exist through LiDAR. But then when someone else called Teixeira came back just 100 years later, they were all gone because the
vegetation.
Amazon, exactly, the vegetation is such a intense recycling machine, and that's just 100 years. And we've been on the planet for at least 350,000 years. So things being erased is extremely easy, which means that the potential for humans doing sophisticated things is quite large, that we've lost the evidence for that. So yeah.
Do you believe in these myths?
Myths of like floods?
Myths of floods and deluge and yeah.
I think it's interesting that it's such a common theme across cultures all around the world. But then I also bear in mind that floods are quite common in nature as well. So like if a flood happened, it's the kind of thing you would put into a myth to kind of teach about. I'm not sure I buy into this idea that there was like a global flood that everyone's remembered. Like that's something that Hancock says that I'm not 100% behind. But I think it is an interesting phenomenon that flood myths exist in cultures all across the world. And I think there certainly may have been more localized floods that could have wiped out cultures in, like there's the Black Sea deluge flood that happened around 6,000 BC, I think, which was like quite a vast area of land that was submerged, which, I mean, that could definitely leave behind a kind of civilizational memory and myth. But this idea that it was a global one, like a kind of huge tidal wave that swept across the whole world, I don't really subscribe to that. But I guess you never know. I guess there could have been some crazy things happening. But yeah, I don't know.
And Graham is also talking about this one white bearded man who brought the knowledge about agriculture.
Yeah.
How to harvest actually, or how to write, how to do mathematics, etc. Mm-hmm. And these always occur on very distant parts of the world relatively at the same time.
Yeah, the kind of reoccurring theme of a knowledge bringer does appear in myths all across the world, like someone who came from somewhere before the flood or the cataclysm or something, and then brought the knowledge to restart the civilization. I mean, yes, there is a lot of that, but also like it's I think you can interpret these things in so many ways, and you can like connect all these myths together. But I think the idea of a wise knowledge bringer isn't necessarily, I mean, what Graham argues is that it's like an echo of like something that actually happened, and it's kind of been reinterpreted in these myths. And I think, yeah, maybe, but I don't think you could ever say that is anywhere close to proof.
Yeah, it's just strange.
Exactly, it's just strange, and it's interesting. And I agree that it's interesting and strange. But you also could make the argument that it's just quite a similar kind of idea for a culture to form of like a wise knowledge bringer, bringing knowledge at the kind of beginning of time after the great catastrophe. It's like something that many cultures probably could formulate just as a kind of symbolic metaphor. But it's certainly interesting, and it's certainly fun to speculate that it could be some echo of a lost time. So, yeah.
When you're doing your research, what is a strong evidence for you, or how do you filter the papers or the scientific researches for your videos?
So I usually try to base all my arguments on things that are accepted by the mainstream, the evidence that is accepted by the mainstream. And then I kind of put them together and say, well, maybe because these things are true, this could suggest that. So I don't cite things that aren't already accepted. And that's why I get kind of frustrated when people call me like a fake or a pseudo or whatever. It's because I'm not basing my videos on fake data at all. I source every single paper that I speak about. It's just that my conclusions, or my potential conclusions, they're not even conclusions, they're hypotheses, sometimes are a little bit more out there, because I say, well, because this means this, well then maybe this was possible, kind of thing. So my bar is actually quite high in terms of something that I'll actually put out there and say use as evidence. But then I let myself run wild with theories and speculations, because that's fun. But I don't ever claim them as definitive. I just always say that they're just speculation. They're just just speculating about things. So yeah, that's my bar is actual academic papers, because I think that's the best way to challenge these things, is to actually use the mainstream themselves and be like, well, you said this, so maybe this suggests this, So that's what I do.
Why do you think your videos are so successful? What's the key?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I'm lucky that there's a lot of interest in this kind of thing, I guess.
Do you do this systematically? The editing, the hook?
Oh yeah,
et
I mean, I
cetera?
have like a whole creator. Like, I'm very into the kind of creator aspect of things. Like, I am very specific about my titles, very specific about my thumbnails, very specific about my editing, very specific about my intros, and very specific about the whole structure of the videos. And I am very, into the creator aspect of it as well. As just being a history nerd, I'm also kind of always learning about the process of creating content and what keeps people engaged and what gets people to click and things like that. But it's always a balance, because you don't ever want to go too far into the just optimize everything for clicks, because then you just do, you'll do like
retention rate will be not much.
Well, exactly. And you don't want to go the other way and be like, this is proof that ancient aliens built the pyramids, and get loads of clicks, but like completely give up all your integrity. So it is a balance, but I enjoy that aspect of it as well. To be fair, it's about combining those two skills and developing those two skills as I continue and as I go on, just making myself better at both the kind of historical analysis and contemplation, and also better at the presentation of that kind of thought process into a well-packaged video format that people enjoy. So that's kind of the job. And I hope I'm getting better at it as I go on, but maybe not. Maybe I'm getting worse. Who knows? But we'll see.
Do you study the algorithm as well on YouTube, or?
In some senses, yeah. I mean, it's a weird beast to study, because it's very temperamental and it depends on different things, and depends on the kind of niche you get yourself into as well, and depends on what's popular at that moment in time. But I study my own videos and how they interact with the algorithm a lot. So I'll study what does well and what doesn't do well, what gets clicks, what gets people to click off, what keeps people watching, what people are interested in, and all those things go into it. And I'm just constantly trying to refine my videos to be better intellectually and also better in terms of a content package as well. And sometimes I fail. Like sometimes my videos, I look at it and go, that's rubbish. Like what you doing there? But I think I've got better over time at that aspect of it as well. Yeah.
Did you study filmmaking also on your own, or how did you get into this? How did you start your first editing project?
So I actually made a film, like not a proper film, just me and my friend. We made a kind of like stoner comedy film. If you know what I mean by that, like a film like a stoner comedy film, I guess means a film that's like influenced by marijuana.
Okay.
So it's like a kind of silly film that's like about, well, so we made a film about two guys just kind of running around, and then they smoke weed, and then they transform into other people, and then they have to go and rob a drug dealer, and then they transform into mafia bosses, and then they have to save the world, and they transform again, and they save the world from aliens. Very silly like film, very silly film, but like just fun to make, and just like was a blast. And I did that with my friend. And it's just like terrible editing. It's literally just me and him walking around with like pistols, and then you add like sound effects, like pew, 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 with like fighting aliens and stuff. And like people can find that like if they actually want to watch it. Like I'm in a band called Headache, which is our band. So if people search up that, they'll see the film, which is called Okay, I'm Reloaded. But like,
you're a musician as well?
Yeah. So I used to make music. I mean, I don't really do it anymore because we haven't done it like properly since before COVID. Like we used to play shows, like live shows and stuff. I used to play the guitar and sing with my band. It's kind of like punk rock music, pop punk kind of music.
Nice.
But we haven't done that in terms of actually being a band for quite a while. Not since before COVID, like actually being a live band. We made music since then, but not for a couple of years now, because we made that film. Like we made that film about 2 years ago, and we haven't made music for about 3 years. But that's kind of where it came from. So my creative journey, this is what I mean about like my skills. So I have like a creative background in terms of making music and making a film. And because I produced all the music and edited the film, that was me that did that. So that kind of taught me that aspect of things. And then I had the history degree that taught me that aspect of things. And then I had the kind of wandering mind of like a crazy guy that thinks about things. And that gave me that aspect of things. And I could kind of combine them together to create, I had the editing skills and the content skills from the band, but I mean, mainly I learned them through doing the YouTube, to be honest, but I had a foundation, and then historical skills, combine that together. And that's kind of how I fell into this career, I guess. But yeah.
May I ask how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay, I'm 29.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
And we just established this fact with Luke Evans that we are the youngest ones.
Yeah.
Actually, he's also 28.
Luke is
I think
the exact same age as me, but I think he's like a couple weeks older than me or something.
Yeah, he just turned, I think, 28 after we did the recording last summer.
Yeah, I think he's like a week older than me or something. Like, we're really similar. It was really weird when we found out we're like the same age.
It was so weird that there are not much young people in this community or in this field.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite an old man's game, to be honest. But that's all right. That's fun.
And you editing in Premiere or DaVinci or?
So I have an editor now, but I used to edit in Final Cut Pro, which is the Apple one.
So you are outsourced the flow?
I outsource the editing now, yeah. Just because it's better and it frees up my time to do the things that I actually like want to focus on, which is like the research and things like that. But yeah, I edited every single video up until about the summer of last year. But it was just a bit of a slog. Just finding all the correct things and like put it all in. But I got decent at it, but it was never like the skill I was never very good at it. I was just like passable at it. I just could do it, and I did it until I could like facilitate not being able to do it myself. Once I started making money from the job, that was the first thing I did. Before even like paying myself, I hired an editor. Or I still had my day job before I hired an editor before I quit my day job. So that like the priority was getting the editor rather than quitting the day job, so.
What was your day job?
I worked in like policy. It was boring. It was just like a classic office job, like looking at policies, like advising like governments on. So I worked in technology policy, so like advising.
Come on, you are somehow
well, I know, but it's
related to technology.
This is the thing. I know, I am technically in that way, but it's not. Like all these people don't know anything about technology, and neither did I, and so it just felt a bit silly, to be honest with you. Like, we would just be like looking at reports of like how the UK basically could use AI and stuff like that to make its economy better, but then also all the other kind of competing issues and stuff. Like I can't really remember, to be honest with you, and things like data rights and privacy rights and things like that. Yeah. And like, but what I basically did was send emails. Like, to be honest with you, like that was what I basically did. But that was kind of the theme of the job, and it was like interesting on like some level, but like the day to day, I didn't find very interesting, to be honest with you. Like, I find like those big questions interesting, like the impact of technology on society and AI on society, and how governments should react to that. But I obviously wasn't the guy doing that. I was the guy right at the bottom, like saying like, should we have a meeting at this point about this paper or whatever? So, but yeah, I mean, it was all right, but I prefer this.
I think you are very lucky that you reached your, I would say, from the conversation we had before the recording, you reached your own version of rich life.
Yeah.
So it's quite cool.
No, I am lucky, and I'm grateful as well for like all the people that watch me and support me, because that's like what allows me to do it. And just people that have helped me along the way, like people like Graham, like reaching out to me to do an interview. That was like incredible. People like Joe, of course, and just other people that have helped me along the way. So like I'm very grateful to everyone, really, that like I've done my bit. I've worked hard, and I like, you know, I respect what I've done for like myself, but like also like I'm very thankful to everyone else for making it possible as well. So yeah, living the dream, I guess. Like I am rich in that way. Like I'm not rich in the money way, but I'm rich in the fact that I kind of own my own time now. So
worth more than money, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right. Yeah.
I had a few questions still, I think. So which sites and questions are you focusing on, or are you planning to focus on in the future?
I don't know. I've done a lot of things. I put out a video every single week, and I've been doing it for, let's say, a year in terms of like really focused on this subject. So that's,
you can sustain it for
exactly, but like it means I'm
Jesus.
just kind of like slightly struggling to like come up with like new topics, because there's only so much you can talk about. But I mean, I'm trying to think about what I've got planned, because I have like a whole spreadsheet of like.
How do you find your topics? Just what interests you and you heard about recently, or?
Yeah, basically, to be honest, like I'm just always just nerding out about this stuff and just like looking around on the internet and like just exploring things, I guess. And then I just build a big bank of like topics that potentially could be a video whenever I think of it. Yeah. Like even if I'm just walking around and I think of it, I'm like, I'll note it down, and then I'll kind of expand out from them. So I don't really, there's no like real moment when I choose a topic. It's more I have all these topics that I'm thinking about on the go, and then I'll choose one to build a video around, and then try to get one of them out a week. I can't remember what I've got coming up, but I mean, I've got a whole list of things. I think I've got a video coming out about the Younger Dryas, because I've never actually really spoke about that, and like the kind of debate around the impact hypothesis and how that's all still kind of up in the air, because they had these two papers that came out last year that were looked like really good proof in support of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, but then they both got retracted, which is obviously a bit of a blow for the people that subscribe to that view. So I've got a video coming out about like the kind of current state of play in that.
Would you like to talk about this topic right now?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, obviously, like a lot of people in this world kind of have this idea, and Graham is like a really obvious proponent of this, which is that the Younger Dryas, which was a clear climate catastrophe that happened 11,800 years ago, or that's when it.
That would explain a lot.
Yeah, well, exactly. A lot of people say, you know, that's what wiped out a potential civilization that existed before then. Then we're seeing the remnants with places like Tashtapela and stuff like that. so the Younger Dryas definitely happened, and it was definitely a devastating climatic period where we see like massive megafaunal extinction and massive like climate change, temperature dropping really dramatically by like 10 degrees in just a few decades, which is like a crazy temperature swing. And then lasting for 1,000 years and then shooting back up again just as dramatically. That definitely happened. That's not disputed. The kind of debate is around what caused that. So the mainstream explanation is that it was kind of melting ice sheets that went into the Atlantic Ocean and disrupted the kind of conveyor-like current of the Atlantic Ocean and destabilized the temperature of the world. And the alternative explanation is that happened, but it was caused by a comet impact that led to air bursts above the North American ice sheet, and that's what caused this displacement of water. And my conclusion in the video and my conclusion now is that I don't know, and I don't subscribe to either. I don't think it's definitely the mainstream explanation. I don't think it's definitely a comet. I think there's good evidence for the comet and the black mat layer and microspherules and nanodiamonds that they find across the globe at these kind of time. But I also don't think it's at the stage yet where you can say it definitely was a comet. I mean, there's no crater or anything like that. But I also don't like the way it's dismissed, because it is real scientific research that's going into this. People like the Comet Research Group are really actually doing proper scientific papers, doing it the proper way, and are really looking into it. And so I don't like the way it's attacked, but I'm not fully like on board with it. But I support it. I support the work they're doing, but I'm not fully.
You need more proof.
Yeah, exactly. I need more proof for it to say that it's true. But to be honest, to me, it doesn't massively matter. I think what matters is that the Younger Dryas was a really, really catastrophic, severe climate episode. And so if there was some kind of human civilization that existed before that or during that, surely they would have been dramatically affected. And yeah, that's kind of all that matters for the argument of the lost civilization beforehand, right? Maybe not, I don't know.
Do you think there's sites like Derinkuyu and these underground caves could have been built because of that?
Yeah, that is a video that I actually have got coming out soon. So you remembered better than me my own videos that are coming out. I mean, do I think they could have been built because of that? Maybe, I don't know. I think there's a lot of weirdness about Derinkuyu and all those underground cities in Turkey that, like, no one actually knows when they were built, and people claim that they do, but no one actually does. We just know who occupied them. Like, a lot of people say it was the Phrygians, a lot of people say it was the Hittites, a lot of people say it was expanded a lot during the Byzantine period, and I'm sure that's true, but there's no record of its construction. There's no archaeological evidence that proves with any certainty at all when these underground cities were constructed. We just have this network of underground cities in that area.
They found some bones maybe from the Roman times.
Yeah, exactly. And they find things from the later times, but that just shows that people used them.
Yeah.
It doesn't show when they were originally built. And we have nothing to show when it was originally built. It's just guesswork. It's basically the oldest civilization in that region. We say it must have been them because they're the oldest civilization in that region. But that's not proof at all.
But it's crazy. It has ventilation systems, place for the animals, doors, huge doors. They could close themselves inside.
Yeah.
It was like
18 levels, 84 meters deep into the earth.
Discovered.
Yeah.
I think it's even more that it's not open or not discovered.
And it's connected to Kaimakli and other underground cities through tunnel. Like, it's a huge underground complex. And we know people used it, like the Phrygians and the Hittites and the Christians, but we don't know who built it. And it could be much older because there's nothing stopping it being much older other than the fact that we haven't got a civilization we know about at that time. But that doesn't mean that didn't exist. And it's a really interesting one. And then you have things like Longyou caves in China, which is just baffling. Like, it's crazy. Like,
I haven't heard about that.
You don't know about Longyou caves? Longyou caves is crazy. It's like these, you've probably seen it. You probably just don't know it from the name. It's like these massive caverns in China that there's 24 of them, and they're all huge with like these massive pillars and these chisel marks that go in parallel lines along them. And they were discovered under these ponds by these farmers in the 90s. And there's zero historical record of them at all. There's something like 2.5 million cubic meters of rock would have had to have been excavated to
really?
Yeah, to excavate the caverns, and there's no evidence of where that rock went. It's not in any of the nearby kind of area. It's not in any of the architecture nearby. It's not in any of the streams or anything like that. And is attributed to the Qing dynasty through nothing, basically, just because it's like the Deren-Kiyü thing. But there's no record of them building it, and this is a culture that recorded everything. Like ancient China has one of the most recorded traditions of any ancient civilization. They wrote down everything. They were very bureaucratic. There's nothing about Longyou caves, no mention of it whatsoever. So no one knows what it was for. No one knows how they achieved the precision between each 24 caverns. They're all exactly the same. Like the angles are all precisely exactly the same. No one knows why they built it. No one knows who built it. No one knows how old it is.
Sounds like a scanning research topic.
Yeah, I mean, it is legitimately crazy that...
is it crazier than the Barabar caves?
See, I don't know too much about that. That's not something I've investigated. That's like another thing I need to go and look at and make a video about at some point. It's on the list. I've never looked at it in any detail, so I don't really know anything about it. But it sounds like the same kind of vibe from what I know about
like
that.
Huge caves, basically carved out of, I think, igneous rock, but probably granite as well. Very hard stone. That's the main strangest point of it. And also carved to a very, very precise sphere shape or conical, depends on the room. And they have scanned it with these huge pharaohs. I mean, the scan had to be huge because it's a room, probably sometimes bigger than this one. And I think Hugh Newman had or made a few documentaries on that. The walls are so shiny, it's like polished to a level when it looks like a glass layer on the wall. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know nothing about it, but I think Johanna, do you know Johanna James?
Yeah.
I think you spoke to her actually, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
She narrated a documentary about it, which I saw a bit.
Yes, what's the name of the documentary?
Something like
BAM?
Yeah, I can't remember. I saw it.
That's
I saw a
the
bit
abbreviation, but I don't remember the full name. But
Yeah.
she narrated. That's actually a cool documentary. The same research team had also measured or investigated the geometries and the flatness and the surface of these age blocks in South America.
Yeah.
And the other sites. That's actually cool. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much like it, isn't there? There's so much weird ancient construction all around the world, some of it underground, that no one can like explain with conventional methods, and that leaves the gap open for all these alternative theories. And that doesn't mean the alternative theories are correct, but it means they're worth exploring.
Or underwater, a lot of sites or a lot of interesting possibilities are underwater because it's just harder to excavate and it was not that exposed. Or
what do you think about those pyramids of Cuba? Did you know what I mean by that? There's like a...
Yes, I heard.
Yeah.
I had a talk with Dan Richards.
Oh yeah.
And he told me that actually the woman who discovered that in the 80s, maybe?
Yeah.
Late 1900s, I don't know exactly when, they were looking for a shipwreck.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady discovered the shipwreck on the sonar image. It's quite deep. I don't know how many kilometers, but it's fairly deep. And they sent down a sonar, and they found the boat prior to the pyramids. And then the lady also found these structures, but she didn't really know what was that. She didn't want to. She thought that it's a Cuban military base or something, military device or whatever, and she didn't want to be in trouble. So, and also I think that was Castro's time, and she was silent about this. And then she found a Mayan image or some kind of depiction of these pyramids, and then she said, "Oh yes, no, I can go public on this because it's like that." But I think no one really researched that more because it's hard because of the depthness.
Yeah.
But that would be something very interesting.
Well, that would shake up everything, because I think the depth of it means that it would have had to have been that wouldn't have been land since before 12,000 years ago or something. So that would just change everything. But yeah, it's hard to look at. It's also it's mentioned in the Epstein files, which is a weird.
Really?
Yeah. There was it was legit because I saw it and I was like, that's not real. And it actually was one of the Epstein files. Was someone talking about it? But I mean, that doesn't really mean much, I guess. But there was they were discussing the underwater megastructures off Cuba in the Epstein files, which is weird. But
Do you know in which
it might be. Did it have the image? I think so.
in which context, or what was the context?
I think the context was just them talking about it. So it might have just been they were like people like having the same kind of conversation we were. I don't think it was like we know that this is a a lost civilization or anything. We're hiding it or anything like that. But it was.
Do you know if anything else was mentioned which is related to these prehistoric or ancient sites?
I saw something. I can't remember what it was, but nothing particularly. No. But I don't think they were the type of people that were massively interested in lost ancient civilizations, or maybe they were, but I think they had nastier things on their mind.
The Nazis were.
The Nazis were, yeah, that is true. That is true. But I think they were doing it from some like weird kind of like racist kind of like trying to prove like they were the master race. Like there is a little bit of a history there in terms of that's why people call Graham Hancock a white supremacist, because there is some people have used it, the lost civilization Atlantis kind of thing, as in a racist way, including the Nazis. They were trying to prove like the mastery of the Aryan race through discovering a lost Aryan civilization or something stupid like that. I don't know. But yeah, they did think they thought Atlantis was real. They thought many of these things were real, which is weird. It's interesting, but
they were also going for a technical objects or the technical aspect of this ancient history, because they were looking for the Ark of the Covenant, they were looking for this Holy Grail, etc. It was
maybe there's some
weird.
truth there, who knows? But they also were like pretty mad as well. Like, I mean, I don't even need to go into how mad they were. So, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting that maybe they knew something we didn't, or maybe they were just mad. Who knows?
Have you researched these elongated skulls?
Not really. I know about them. I think it's pretty weird, to be fair. Like some of them are really elongated as well. But I don't know too much about them. I think it probably is just humans doing some crazy head binding thing.
Because I heard about this topic a lot of times, related to the Smithsonian, and also the Smithsonian, how they lost the giant bones, etc.
Yeah, there's lots of conspiracies about that as well. Like hiding giant bones and hiding reports of giants in North America, red-headed giants and stuff like that.
Also this cave in the Grand Canyon where you cannot go to. And
yeah. There's lots of places in the Grand Canyon you can't go to, which is pretty weird, to be honest. Like, I don't know why all of it's shut. It's like shut off for like military reasons. I mean, I don't know. There's so many places you can go with it. It's just unknowns that you can fill with many different theories and stuff. Doesn't mean any of them are correct, but also they could be. So,
what do you think would be? I mean, what would be the 3 top megalithic? Not supposed to megalithic, but any kind of finds in the next few years which would completely change our understanding of the human timeline? Do you think there would be?
So I mean,
probably more than 3, but just the top 3.
I don't know. You could change it. I mean, just one find could completely change it. I mean, I guess the dream is like some kind of like hall of records that you find somewhere that like if you found something from 12,000 years ago that had like writing, and it was like clearly writing, and it had all this information about stuff like that, would just
we cannot read.
we wouldn't be able to read it. But even if we couldn't read it, that would change everything, because that would be like, okay, they had
something.
They had a fully written script here, and they're talking about loads of stuff, and that would change everything. And then if we could read it, that would change everything even more.
They would just read. You can't. You found this.
Yeah, exactly. Some horrible, rude stuff. Yeah. But I mean, you never know. Or if you found something like that in Egypt, maybe like talking about in detail about older Egyptian achievements or older achievements in the Sahara Desert or something, I think that could completely change everything. Obviously, if you found, I was going to say if you found megalithic architecture that was much older, but they already did that with Göbekli Tepe, and that didn't seem to change much. But it did, to be fair. Like Göbekli Tepe did change a lot. So if you found something like that was even older, that would change a lot. But yeah, I think or if you found a human somewhere it wasn't supposed to be, like if you found obvious evidence of humans in the Americas 200,000 years ago or something that was like undisputable. But yeah, I think the thing I dream of is some kind of Hall of Records, because that's how you like find out everything, right? If you find some ancient inscription somewhere that you can read and like detail a civilization that was quite sophisticated much earlier than it should have been, that would be it, wouldn't it? That would be the lost civilization. So I guess that would be the dream. But
well, they found the Antiquitary mechanism, and it was sitting in a museum storehouse for 50 years.
That's true. It's true. It's the same with many of these things. They get reanalyzed and reclassified much later, like 100 years later. Yeah. So yeah, maybe we've already found it. I don't think so, but you never know.
What's your take on the vases?
I'm not up to speed with it at all. It's kind of my same answer from before regarding precision in ancient Egypt. Like they come from right at the start, don't they? They're like the first dynasty and stuff.
Pre-dynastic. Even pre-dynastic.
Exactly. So if they're real and not forgeries, and if they are as symmetrical as some of these scans, or as precise as some of these scans say, then how are they doing that? How are they making such precise things with the technology that we attribute to them, right? Like they can't have been. They must have had something else that was more sophisticated. So it's all part of it, and it's all interesting. But again, I defer to the people that know more about it than me, because I'm just a fan when it comes to this stuff. I have no expertise whatsoever. So I watch with interest from afar, but I don't really know too much about it.
Michael Button, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me on, and I appreciate coming to talk to you. And yeah, it was great fun. And I hope everyone subscribes to your show and listen to it. I'll share it on my channels.
Where can my audience find you?
Just search my name on YouTube and I should come up. YouTube is the place. I'm on Twitter and X and
Spotify?
Instagram. I'm not actually on Spotify. Everyone keeps telling me to go on Spotify. I probably should. But I'm not on Spotify yet. But YouTube is where I do my stuff. So search me on YouTube and
it will be linked down.
Thank you.
Under the video. Are you up to a short Patreon part?
Yes, of course, yeah.
We will say goodbye to the
non-paying members. Sign up to the Patreon of Ancient Technology Podcast.
Thank you, Michael.
Hey guys, before you go, I just wanted to let you know that we had a Q&A session with this guest as well, as we always do, and you can find the related link in the description. And if you are a YouTube member or Patreon member, you can submit your own questions to the guests under the revealing posts where I'm telling you who is next on the show. Thank you very much for considering, and see you in the next video. Cheers! A massive thank you to my incredible supporters. Your generosity fuels this journey into ancient technology, keeping this show alive and pushing my research further than ever. As the ancient Egyptians would say, Ankh Vejaseneb.